Hello, everyone. Tyler Dobbs, Senior Director of Government Affairs with the Academy of Model Aeronautics. Wanted to come live today and bring you some developing information. As most of you are aware, this year brings about the requirement for Congress to reauthorize the FAA in a number of their rules through FAA reauthorization. And late last night, we got a Senate bill that was leaked to the public, and this morning we got a House bill that was sent out for draft version, and it had the outlines for the rules that we are to follow outlined in both of those versions. Now, it's important to know that these are draft bills, and they have not been voted on. They haven't been passed, but it does give us a little insight into what to expect with upcoming FAA reauthorization. So we wanted to reach out to membership and let them know what both bills included. I think the important thing to remember is this is step one of a multi-step process. We still have many months to go before we see a final version. What we discussed today could or could not make it into a final bill. So I think that's important to keep in mind. But where we start off today, we are in much better shape than what the current laws in place are. So that's certainly good news. What I'm going to do is just keep it brief, go over some of the highlights within both bills, and then I will be available to answer questions after the fact. You can always reach out to the office. Again, this does not mean that these requirements are law. It's just the House and the Senate's version of what they would like to see in a final bill that we expect sometime in the fall. We'll go through the House bill first, and I'll touch on points as we move forward that many of the provisions in one bill can be found in both. The Senate bill that was leaked, which again is not the official draft, we don't expect that until sometime next week, so things could change on that. But that bill was 404 pages long. The House bill was 773 pages long. So the House bill is almost twice as large as the Senate. So when they conference these two bills, there's going to be quite a bit that will be discussed, and they'll try to have to get a little bit closer together than what they currently are. In the House bill, there was a provision that allows for operations over 400 feet in Class G. That can actually be found in both the House and the Senate version. And that's a provision that we've been working on since 2018. Obviously, that restriction to 400 feet in Class G has been an issue, and both bills address this and do put a process in place that would allow operations above 400 feet if passed. Both bills also do better clarifying large model aircraft operations, and also include a provision that would allow operations above 400 feet in Class G for large model aircraft. So those are two huge things we're happy to see in both bills, and certainly thankful that they made it in. Both bills also include an educational provision that strengthens the educational operations that can be done under recreational rules, that would allow for both elementary and secondary schools to fly under recreational rules, which is something that currently is not permitted. Both bills include a provision that the FAA can spend $1 million a year on the Know Before You Fly campaign, which is great. That educates the general public as to what the rules are followed. We work with the FAA on that campaign, and happy that some funding will be given to that, and we can continue educating those who may not know the current rules and where we're currently at. Both bills provide a provision for the FAA to move forward with unmanned traffic management system for unmanned aircraft, but they specifically mention commercial operations and beyond visual line of sight operations. So that's an important distinction. We have plenty of rules in place for our recreational operations, and we certainly don't want an additional mandate that a UTM or unmanned traffic management system now needs to become part of our world. So while we understand that that's something that the FAA and commercial industry is going to move forward on, we as recreational and educational operators are happy that we will hopefully not need to take part in that. I will mention that the rules both bills make a few changes to the current rules. One is more administrative. It says that the term sanctioned events, which is what most AMA members know, we host sanctioned events, that gets changed to community-based organization sponsored operations. So it means the same thing. Basically, anything a CBO or community-based organization sponsors will be recognized by the FAA in whatever aspect that it addresses. There's one other administrative change. The bills use the word drones quite a bit, and that's something that we hear out of the FAA and we hear out of the industry and on the news. But us as modelers, we are more traditional model aircraft operators, and we usually use the term model aircraft. Some of us have gotten used to using the term unmanned aircraft, and both of these bills, it throws around the word drone quite a bit. It means the same as an unmanned aircraft, same as a model aircraft, but we do expect that drone will be used more and more frequently in the future. So most of those are the same. Operations over 400 feet are going to be addressed and permitted. Large model aircraft that has additional clarification, which is certainly good. Educational provisions are bolstered. Still allows for sanctioned events, additional funding for Know Before You Fly. Those were the things that were the same in both the House and the Senate version. The things that are different. In the Senate bill, there was mention of a categorical exclusion to NEPA, or the National Environmental Protection Act. That's something that us that have been dealing with the FRIAs, or the FAA Recognized Identification Area, has been wanting. Actually, in our public comment to the Federal Register AMAs, suggested that the FAA give model aircraft and UAS a categorical exclusion to any environmental aspect. We have such a low impact on the environment. We think that that's important, and our operations don't really impact much. So Congress agrees, at least in the Senate, and so they put that provision in the bill that we be excluded for any NEPA low impact environmental operation that we do, which, to be honest, is all AMA operations. So hopefully that gets pushed through. It also, the Senate bill creates an additional department within the FAA, the Airspace Innovation Office, which is to manage continued modernization of the national airspace. So that's going to be a task, I believe, that would take part in 2026 if the date stays the same. That office would need to basically handle anything new entrants into the airspace they would be in charge of. So that will be a tall order for the FAA to reorganize and get that in place. But if the Senate gets their way, and the conference committee that kind of puts the House and the Senate bill together, if that makes it into the final version, then that's what the FAA will be tasked with. In the House bill, a couple of differences here. It requires that the FAA work with community-based organizations to provide a process to approve altitudes above the UAS facility map. If you fly in controlled airspace as an AMA club and you have a letter of agreement, you've went through a safety risk management panel, you know how difficult that process is and how long it takes. We need to streamline that. And that's what the House has suggested is FAA, you need to work with AMA and other CBOs and make this process quicker than it currently is, because the existing process is just such a strain on resources. It's not sustainable. The House bill also requires the FAA to prioritize and adjudicate FRIA requests at fixed sites. We're going through the FRIA process now. That needs to be expedited. We need to get those pushed through as quickly as possible. The House included that in their language to let the FAA know, hey, this is a top priority and it needs to be addressed. Lastly, on remote ID in the House bill, it tasks the FAA with determining if a network-based solution could meet the requirements of the remote ID rule. And I think that's important to take a closer look at. As some may remember, before remote ID was implemented, a network-based solution we felt could make sense for at least some of our users. Certainly if you have a phone app and you log your location through a cell phone app that says, hey, I'm going to be operating at this location for the next 3 hours. We feel like that's a pretty sensible and easy way to comply with remote ID. And so Congress has tasked the FAA to see if that's valid. I think on the manufacturer side, if they can incorporate network-based solutions into aircraft, if users can use network-based solution, if traditional modelers could use something as simple as a phone app, then I do think that would save money for quite a few. I know those in the commercial industry feel that network-based solution is needed for the operations that they want to take part in. And I think that many recreational operators could support that if there was a free solution that was as simple as hitting a few buttons on your smartphone. And then there were a few additions to the commercial side beyond visual line of sight operations. I mentioned the unmanned traffic management system. Again, we have a couple bills here that are in total about 1,200 pages, so haven't been able to read it all, but did want to give an update on a few of the provisions that would address many of the concerns that our community and those in the recreational community are facing. The starting point of this bill puts us in very good shape. It certainly doesn't address everything that we're looking for. However, we've been on the phone with members of Congress and their staff last night, this morning, already working on amendments to tweak things here and there. We certainly want to get as much out of this bill as we possibly can. So you didn't hear a provision that you wanted included, rest assured that AMA is already working towards that. We do think that the final bill will remove even more burdens than we're currently facing, and we hope to get those put into place when a final bill comes out. A timeline on a bill, the many think that in the House and the Senate think they can get a final bill passed in September. We hope that's the case. They both met their deadline to get a bill done. I believe they said it would be official next week. They were both going to have a bill out. Looks like they will. The House officially has. The Senate has a leaked version that will likely go out next week. So if we could, get these to the floor sometime in late July and get votes on them, then we could get a final bill in the fall time, which is excellent. We certainly want and welcome restrictions being removed, and we'll continue to do our part to make that happen. So appreciate everybody's time. I know that's a lot of information. What you need to know now is that Congress, both the House and the Senate, are working towards FAA reauthorization. AMA is working with them to remove the restrictions that we currently face, and we will have a bill with some of those solutions in place sometime later this year, we hope, and we will continue to update you along the way. So for the most updates, go to modelaircraft.org/gov. We have a blog there. We update information there. We will continue to do so through this FAA reauthorization process. And any news we get, we'll be sure to share it with our membership just as quickly as we can. So as I mentioned, I have 1,200 pages to sit down and reread. And so I'm going to get to that now. But as a member, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to someone at AMA, and we'll do our best to try to address those. So thank you all and have a great day.